New York City, 1960. The streets were loud, the towers tall, and the smell of money filled the air. Amid all that chaos walked a 22-year-old dreamer, Bernie Madoff, a kid from Queens who didn't have much but wanted everything. Bernie was smart, calm, and convincing. The kind of guy who could sell you a pen and make you believe it was gold. After finishing college, he borrowed a small amount, just a few $100s, and started his own business. He called it Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities. At first, he worked as a market maker, someone who connects buyers and sellers in the stock market. It was legal, clean, and even promising. But for Bernie, the hunger for success was endless. He didn't just want to make money, he wanted power, control, and the feeling that he was smarter than everyone else. So in secret, he launched another business, a small investment advisory firm on the side. He promised his clients, trust me, I'll invest for you. You'll never lose." But he never registered the firm with the SEC, the main financial regulator. Technically, it was illegal, but to Bernie, the rules were suggestions, not limits. For a few years, things looked great. Clients were happy, checks came in. But in 1962, the market crashed, and Bernie lost everything. He panicked. He didn't want his clients to know, so he borrowed money from friends and secretly covered their losses. When his clients checked their accounts, they were shocked. While everyone else lost millions, Bernie hadn't lost a dime. To them, he was a genius. To Bernie, it was a lie, but a lie that worked. And just like that, a small act of deception became a lifelong addiction. By the early 1970s, Bernie's business was booming. He ran two operations, one legitimate, one secret. By day, he was the respected trader. By night, he was the architect of something darker. That's when technology started changing the game. While others were stuck with phones and paper, Bernie invested in computers. Big, slow machines, but powerful. He was among the first on Wall Street to use them. Trades that once took hours could now be done in seconds. He was ahead of his time, and soon his legitimate firm became one of the biggest in America. Clients loved him. He spoke softly, smiled confidently, and always delivered what they wanted. Profit. But behind that charming smile was a man who couldn't stop lying. He began moving money around quietly and taking funds from new investors to pay old ones. A classic Ponzi scheme, but on a small scale. Each fake success brought him more fame, more investors, and more money. At parties, people whispered his name like magic. Bernie Madoff, the man who never loses. He moved into luxury. A house by the sea, tailored suits, expensive watches. But his biggest luxury was control. He had fooled the system, and he liked it. By the 1990s, Bernie Madoff was untouchable. His official company handled billions of dollars and even helped shape the NASDAQ stock exchange. He was the golden man of finance, respected, admired, even feared. His shady business had now become a machine. He told investors he had a special trading strategy, a split-strike conversion. It sounded so technical that no one dared to question it. Every month, like clockwork, investors received reports showing 10 to 15% returns. Steady, safe, and unbelievable. Literally unbelievable, because it wasn't real. There were no trades, no profits, just numbers typed on paper. But people didn't care. They saw money growing and didn't ask how. Even the richest families in America lined up to invest. Universities, charities, pension funds, even Hollywood celebrities trusted Bernie with everything. Kevin Bacon, Steven Spielberg, Larry King, they all had money in his fund. And the more successful Bernie looked, the more untouchable he became. But there was one man who wasn't fooled. Harry Markopoulos, a quiet analyst who worked in Boston. He studied Bernie's numbers and realized they were mathematically impossible. So he did what no one else dared to do. He wrote a full report to the SEC, warning them that Bernie was running a fraud that could destroy thousands. The SEC ignored him. They said, impossible. Bernie Madoff is one of the most respected men in finance. Harry's report went to dust, and Bernie's empire of illusion kept growing. The new millennium arrived, but Bernie didn't change. He had survived every decade, every audit, every whisper. His confidence turned into arrogance. In 2001, Barron's magazine published an article asking the question everyone was afraid to ask. How does Bernie Madoff make money when everyone else is losing it? This time, the SEC decided to investigate. Bernie panicked. He hired two programmers, David and Jerome, and told them to create thousands of fake trading records to fool the regulators. They coded night and day, creating a fake universe of trades that never happened. When the auditors came, they saw what they wanted to see, documents that looked perfect. Bernie passed the audit, again. In total, between 2000 and 2006, the SEC investigated Bernie 5 times. He fooled them every single time. He believed he was invincible. He moved into a Manhattan penthouse, bought 3 yachts, and opened offices with bulletproof doors and private elevators. His employees followed his lead. Fake it, hide it, smile for the cameras. The deeper he went, the bigger the lie became. Billions of dollars gone into thin air. And yet, no one noticed. To the world, Bernie Madoff was a hero. Inside, he was a man building his own cage. Then came the storm, the global financial crisis of 2008. Banks were failing. Stock markets were bleeding. People everywhere were losing money. But Bernie's investors noticed something strange. Their accounts were still growing. While the world collapsed, Bernie was reporting plus 1% every month. It made no sense. Fear spread. Investors started calling, demanding their money back. One withdrawal, then another, then hundreds. On paper, Bernie had around $65 billion in client accounts. But in reality, there was only $300 million left. For decades, the scheme had survived because new money kept coming in. Now, with panic everywhere, that flow stopped. Bernie was cornered. He tried to borrow, to delay, to beg his wealthiest clients for more deposits. But no one trusted anyone anymore. On December 10th, 2008, he gathered his family, his wife Ruth and sons Mark and Andrew. In a quiet, shaking voice, he told them, "It's all a lie. I've been running a Ponzi scheme for decades." His sons were silent. Their father, the man they looked up to, had destroyed thousands of lives. The next day, they did what was right. They called the FBI. On December 11th, 2008, FBI agents arrived at Bernie's luxury apartment in Manhattan. They knocked. Bernie opened the door calmly and said, "It's all true." He was arrested without a fight. The illusion that fooled the world was finally over. Investigators called it the largest financial fraud in human history. Nearly $60 billion in total. Over 40,000 victims from around the world. Retirees, families, charities, universities, and entire foundations destroyed. Bernie pleaded guilty to 11 federal charges: securities fraud, wire fraud, and more. In 2009, he was sentenced to 150 years in prison. Behind bars, the once powerful man became just another inmate. He read books, walked in the yard, and avoided the cameras. But the damage he caused lived on. His elder son, Mark, couldn't handle the shame. He took his own life 2 years after his father's arrest. His younger son, Andrew, died of cancer years later. Bernie lived long enough to see everything he built disappear. His money, his name, his family. On April 14, 2021, at the age of 82, Bernie Madoff died in prison, alone and forgotten. The man who fooled the world had finally paid the price. But even today, thousands of victims are still fighting to recover what they lost. And his story remains a warning that greed doesn't just steal money, it steals trust, hope, and sometimes entire lives.